All right. With the help of Hashem, we are learning Sanhedrin Daf Nun Ches. We left off on Daf Nun Zayin Amid Beis, 2 lines before the bottom of the Amid. The Gemara just quoted on Daf Nun Zayin Amid Beis the opinion of Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir holds like this, that any erva for which a yid, who God forbid, will have an act of cohabitation with, will be an act for which you're going to be chayev misa in a beis din, not only Isur Lav, not only Isur Karas, but punishable in a beis din. It is that act that a ben noach is also going to be forbidden to engage in. If all of the arayas for which Yidden can be forbidden, but it's not under the penalty of execution in court, it's not considered a capital crime, b'nei noach are b'chlal not commanded to disengage from. That was the klal that we quoted Rabbi Meir saying, and our daf will deal with the laws of incest, and really we're going to discover that even though this is correct, there is such a statement of Rav Meir. Rav Meir had 2 teachers. He was a student of Rabbi Eliezer, he was a student of Rabbi Akiva. And there are times that he quoted, when he was in that moment of his life, he quoted Dinim, really it's the Shita of Rabbi Eliezer, there is a Shita of Rabbi Akiva. And so it's going to be a lot about what aroyos are B'nai Noach commanded to disengage from, and which acts are they b'chlal not mitzuva in. We're going to learn specifically about incest. There are going to be opinions that say that a ben noach is allowed to have a relation with his sister. Don't forget that in the Torah calls it actually, interestingly, in Kedoshim, right? Chesed, who? And we're going to quote the Rashi in Chumash. Rashi brings both our Gemara today and Daf Nun Ches, and the pshat of Chesed, there is cherpa, it's ashande. But there is, but it's not an act for which there is a penalty in beis din. And indeed, Rav Meir, Aliba de Rabbi Akiva, will hold that B'nai Noach are not mitzuva in that. We're going to learn a lot about gerus, phenomenal. A ger that converts has a din like a newborn person. Based on that premise, all of the prohibitions that are connected to close relations, halachically, they're not related. Midoiraisa, therefore, a convert will be allowed to have relations or to marry people that previously he was not allowed to. However, the Chachamim came ahead and said that for a convert not to treat Yiddishkeit leniently by saying, "Ooh, I came from a Kedusha Chamura and now I came into a Kedusha Kala." So all of the relations that were prohibited to the Ben Noach when he was still a Ben Noach, Midrabanan continues to be prohibited. Now, therefore, that will be the whole context. We'll have to know what relations are the B'nai Noach mitzvah to keep to understand what rabbinically will remain after the conversion. We're going to have some Agadata. We're going to learn about Adam and Cain. And the beginning of the world was created, especially by Cain having relations and having a procreating with his sister, Oilam. There, the Gemara, Chesed Yibana, that's the Chesed that Cain married his sister. We're going to learn some Agadatan Daf Nun Ches Amud Beis, Hamagbiya Yodai Nikra Rasha, even if you only raised your hand against your fellow. And we're going to start, if we'll have time, the 2 mitzvahs that Goyim may not partake in. Number 1 is Shabbos, Goy Sheshavas Chayev Misa. Wow. And as the Gemara will explain, it doesn't only mean if you keep Shabbos on Shabbos, even if you keep Shabbos on Monday, I'm quoting the words of Ravina, as we will unpackage this daf. Chavra, let us start on Daf Nun Zayin Amid Beis, 2nd line before the bottom of the Amid. So says the Gemara V'Saba Rabbi Meir, as we just quoted above, that Kol Erva, only the Aroyos, the forbidden sexual relations, Shebeis Din Shel Yisrael Man Misin Oleha, for which if a Yid, God forbid, engages in, he's going to be Chayev Misa in Beis Din, only those Ben Noach Muzar Haleah. And by the way, let's also speak out the opposite, which means that the many Aroyos for which a Yid, God forbid, is going to be Chayev Kares, which is serious. But if there's no Misas Beis Din, B'nai Noach, we're not commanded regarding those relations. For example, sister, Oy Gewalt. Now the biggest problem will be, it's going to be a stira between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Meir. In other words, now we're going to quote a Braisa that we're going to quote Shitas Rabbi Meir. So let's start.
Rabbi, when you say Geish Shavas Chayev Misa or the other, what you're talking about, what shlita or what purview or power does a bezdin?
Very good. So even though we're jumping ahead, Chayev Misa, according to most, means Chayev Misa v'dei Shamayim, not Chayev Misa for us to put them to death. Okay, now let's go. Let's begin now. The Baraisa has the angle of a ger, and look at everything is gemaidic, nuanced. Right? If a woman, the mother of this person, conceived the ger prior to the mother converting, and while she was pregnant with this child, she converted. So the late dasei b'kedusha. Now let me just speak out the following: when a woman converts prior to her even getting pregnant, that child is a bona fide ben Yisrael. So none of what we're going to be learning is going to be relevant to him or to her. They're not ben Yisrael, whichever aroyas are commanded to ger. No, 1 second. It's you say gershin is guide cotton shenoilad. It's not a ger. He's related to his mother. When a woman converts while she's pregnant, halachically, it's as if the child also converted. Wow. Avade, if the child converts after the child was born, midin toira, he's not related even to his mother, midin toira, because he's like a newborn person. But even if he was in the mother's womb, from there on, mitzad echad, he's considered a convert. And we're not going to speak now. How did he go to the mikvah? The mother went to the mikvah. What about chatzitza? Anyway, he went to the mikvah. In other words, the dinim that we spoke about in the intro, that really midin Torah, now he can marry anyone who he wants because he has no close kin. There is no erva here. Yet, midrabanan, that for the person not to say that when I was a goy, when I was a ben noyach, I had more restrictions. Now that I became a yid, I have less restrictions. Midrabanan, he may not still marry them. Who is the them that he may not marry? Now, another detail, when we speak about incest for bnei noyach, as we'll see, many for which they are mitzvah not to engage in, that's only maternal relatives. That's very important. According to Rabbi Meir and many other Tanoim, paternal connection for a ben noyach is not called a connection. I know it's a big daf, but I'll give you just one example. This is the big topic, right? Yaakov Avinu, even though he was not mitzvah v'oimed, but the Torah testifies to the fact that the avos kept all the mitzvahs. How did he marry 4 sisters? And by the way, all 4 of them were sisters, not just Rachel and Leah, but Bill and Zilpah all shared Lavan. One approach is that they all only shared the same father. Even Rachel and Leah did not share the same mother. And Rab Meir, as we're going to learn right now, holds that they're not even considered sisters. Okay, so let's go. So now the Baraisa is going to go through, this is all of the relations that a ben noyach is mitzvah, is commanded not to engage in. So Yesh Lo She'er Ha'eh Midrabanan, he still has maternal relations. Ve'ein Lo She'er Ha'av, he doesn't have any paternal relations because remember, there's 2 steps. Really, Midairaisa, he can marry anyone who he wants. Why? Because Gershin is Gair Kekotn Shenoilot. Eloma Midrabanan, if as a ben noyach he would have been asked to engage with an act of cohabitation with someone that has to continue midrabanan, okay, so it's only she'eroim. For example, if he married his sister from his mother, now another detail, it must mean that his sister also converted. Just to make in other words, there was a woman, she already had a daughter. While she was pregnant with him, she converted, her daughter converted, and then when they grew up, if they were to marry, yoitzi.
Has to be only after he converted, or could be before?
No, she won't be allowed to marry him because she's a Jewess and he's a goy. Let's help that and come. So yoitzi means even post facto. Why? Because if he and she, Shuki, would have remained b'nei noyach, a brother cannot marry a sister. That will be the whole kasha. Brother cannot marry a sister, according to Rabbi Meir, according to the statement that Rabbi Meir says that only aroyas for which Ben Yisrael is going to be chayiv misa in a Yiddish based in are relations which a Ben Noyach cannot have. Again, a man, a brother, and a sister is avada asur charis. It's a pasuk in Kedoshim, but there's no execution in a court. Okay, but let's read all the cases. But min ha'av, if he marries a sister, but it's only a paternal sister, yikayim, favas yikayim, because even if they both would have been a bnei noyach, again he holds they're not considered related. Now hold on, Yekayim only means post facto. Why not lechatchila? I'll tell you why not lechatchila. See, that's the word. Because that's, according to many, that's why this case is when leidase b'kedusha. We don't want people to confuse him with a bona fide Ben Yisrael, because he actually never went to the mikvah by himself. He was in the mother's womb. But post facto, we consider him a convert. Next, achois ha'av min ha'eim, the father's sister, but the father's sister because the father and his aunt are maternally related, yoitzi, and maternally, but min ha'av, again, yekayim. Okay. In other words, all of this is following the shita that relation, a close kin, for which at times a ben noyach is mitzuva not to have an act of cohabitation with, avada not to marry, is only maternally. Next, achois ha'eim min ha'eim, herst, the mother's sister, but the mother and the aunt are maternally related. Oichet yoitzi, achois ha'av min ha'av, this, right? Achois ha'eim min ha'av, I'm sorry, the mother's sister, but the mother and the aunt are only paternally related. So really, they're not related. But since we're speaking about mother, Rav Meir makes a gzeira, people won't chop that. People are going to see, because we know from the mother's side, maternally, it's considered relations. The emes is, so what? It's the mother's sister, min ha'av. But because of people might confusing it, there's a tzad ain, there's a tzad maternal here, midrabanan. Rav Meir says, Yotzi, the Chachamim say, Yekayim. Now, Shahoya Rav Meir constantly says, Kol erba shehim mishum she'eir aim, only relations that are connected because of maternal relations, like we said, that Yotzi, but mishum she'eir av Yekayim. And let's keep on going, other cases in the Braisa. Umutar be'eshes achiv. So guys, eshes achiv is only an isra of erva for Yidden, right? That's the whole Masechta Yevamis, right? With the exception of when the brother passed away without any children. Goyim are not matzuva against marrying their brother's wife, obviously, when the brother passed away, not when they're married. And eshes ish, everyone is moida eshes ish. Chayiv misa and Bezdin, then oich is matzuvan. U be'eshes achi aviv, nor, right, he's allowed to marry the wife of his father's brother. Same concept. In other words, relations, guys, that are asur for Yidden through marriage, that will be the key, are not going to be asur. The shar kol aroyos, but all other aroyos are permitted, and the Gemara interrupts to understand what is this coming to include. La asuye eshes aviv, right? By a Yid, if the father, not his mother, Reuven has Yaakov. Yaakov married Rachel. Reuven is Ben Leah. So he's never going to be allowed to marry Rachel because Rachel is his father's wife. This is after Yaakov passes away or after he divorces her. Again, a Ben Noach is not mitzuva against it. That's the key here. Really, he's a Yid, but on the other hand, he's a Ged Katan. So therefore, he's a Katan Shenoilad. He's not related anymore to his father. Elama shelo yomru, even as a Ben Noach, he was allowed to do it. Continuing the Braisa. Nasa isho bita. Prior to him converting, this is close to a normal convert. He's not a fetus because he's not married as a fetus. So imagine a man is married to a woman and her daughter. According to a Ben Noach is allowed to do that. The Isur of Isha Ubita is not punishable by in court. But Nasa Isha Ubita, and now he divorces them. I'm sorry, now he converts. Now they also converted. He wants to remarry them. He can't do that. Koines achas umoitzi achas. Koina achas umoitzi achas. Other guys, this will be a problem again, because a man marrying a mother and a daughter, if I'm not mistaken, doesn't have an isur, a punishment in Bezdin. Yet here we're going to see certain exceptions to this. He cannot marry both of them. And furthermore, ulechatchila lo yichnois. In other words, anyone that has a relation, all of the cases, right, where the relation is because of paternal, like we mentioned, this person should not marry this person. Because if he would have been a bona fide gay, means if he would have converted after he was born, everyone understands he has a get. Since Hayrasai was Takashalai B'Kedusha, but Leidasai B'Kedusha, an observer might think that this is a Yid. So not to confuse that, Lechatchila, don't marry anyone that a Yid cannot marry. Another din, the final din, Umeisa Ishtoi, if his wife passes away, then Mutar B'Chamoisai, he's allowed to marry the mother of his wife, again, because even as a Ben Noach B'chlal is not mitzvah in it, his wife is not alive right now, therefore he's allowed to marry her. The Ben Noach is not also to marry his mother-in-law. However, Ve'ikad Amri, that even though a Ben Noach is not usher in the mother-in-law, he is usher to marry his mother-in-law. And Chevra, this is a sugya in Yevamas Daf Tzadik Ches, V'ayin Sham, the reason behind this machlokes. What do we see from this brayso? Chevra, we see 2 points from this brayso. Number one, the brayso says that a convert cannot marry his sister. Like we mentioned, why not? This is Rav Meir, Shoyra Meir Oimer. A Ben Yisrael, who God forbid has an act of cohabitation with a sister, or if he marries a sister, is chayiv kodes, but there's no misas bezdin. Here, he's a convert. Really, he's not even related. Elama shelo yoimru, that I came from a kedusha chamura, not kedusha kala. So you cannot do what you could not have done as a Ben Noach. According to Rav Meir on Daf Nun Zayin Amud Beis, a Ben Noach should be allowed to marry his sister. There's no misas bezdin. And there's another. Kasha Rav Meir, Shoyra Meir Oimer. The Brayse quotes Rav Meir here, and on Daf Nun Zayin basis weiter Rav Meir. Okay. Answers the Gemara Amar Rav Yehuda like Kasha, that really these two Brayses are not following the same opinion. Yes, they're both Rav Meir, because Rav Meir and the Rabbi Eliezer, and the Brayse that we learned over here, Rabbi Eliezer has a more broader isurim on Bnei Noach. According to Rabbi Eliezer, a Ben Noach may not marry his sister. So that's why over here, even though again, Midoy Raisa, he's allowed to marry her. But Shelo Yoimru goes on sister, and the Braisa that we quoted on Daf Nun Zayin Amud Beis, right, that Kol Erva only Shebeis Din Shel Yisrael, Memisen Oleha, Bnei Noach is Muzar Oleha. That follows Rav Meir when he was quoting his other teacher, Rabbi Akiva the Tanya. So here's the ground zero of what Isurei incest is upon a Ben Noach. So it's amazing that they are all learned from a pasuk that God Almighty told Adam and Chava, Al Ken Yazov Ish, and let's interpret the pasuk piece by piece. The Tanya, when it says in the beginning of Bereshis, Al Ken Yazov Ish es Aviv es Imay, that a man should abandon his father and his mother, and let's go back to the Baal Peh, Yeshlemi v'davak b'ishta, he should cling or cleave to his wife. And they should become one flesh. So let's go, Omar Rabbi Eliezer, when the Torah says Yazov Ish es Aviv, what does that mean? It means that he's asur with the sister of his father. Now, another thing which the Gemara doesn't speak out, but maternally, that's not the focus there. Even though Aviv doesn't mean leave your father, means that a man may never be with the sister of his father. Which means that if his father has a sister from the Zayda, only paternally, he's allowed. That's another detail that we're not focusing on. The close, she'er means close kin. Erva means normally that which is sexually forbidden through marriage. We'll see. She'er is specifically people that are your close relatives. The she'er that a Ben Noach is mitzvah on, regardless, will only be maternally, not paternally. Okay. And nor can you be with imai. Oh, 1 second. When it says imai, right? Aviv v'imai. Imai means achois imai. In other words, all maternal relations are asur. Avada sister. Without saying. That's you see. That's the shita on Daf Nun Ches. That if you can't marry your father's sister, your mother's sister, for sure you cannot marry your own sister. Even though be'emes, if a yid has an act of bia with his sister, he's not chayiv misa in Beis Din. Doesn't matter. That's included in the pasuk. Rabbi Akiva Oimer, no. Aviv refers to Ashes Aviv. Now, I want to make it clear, Eishes Aviv obviously does not mean when the father is married to her. That's Eishes Ish, that a Ben Noach is Mitzuvah on. Means that even after the father is not in the picture, he's Mitzuvah not to marry Eishes Aviv.
His mother.
Doesn't mean the mother. Doesn't mean the mother. It means, like I gave an example, like Reuven with Rachel. It's not his mother. His mother is Leah. But the fact that his father married another woman, she will always be asur on him, even for a ben noach. Imay means imay mamish. By the way, Eishes Aviv is punishable by death and Beis Din. Imay punishable by death and Beis Din. I'm saying that's all Daf Nun Zayin. All of the cases that we'll see are included in the pasuk. According to Rabbi Akiva, you'll see a yid is going to be chayev misa in Beis Din. When it says v'davak, to cling or to cleave, that's the source that a ben noach is not allowed to engage in an act of homosexuality. By Zachar al Pitoira, there is no Vadavak, which is why he's not allowed to engage in it. It's good to know that, because when people, at least the Fruma Goyim, so-called Fruma Goyim, when they quote from Leviticus, basically they quote over there from Parshas Achrei Mois, that the Torah writes explicit psukim, those psukim are for Yidden. If you want to tell a Goy who state that you may not engage in an act of homosexuality, from Vadavak. When it says Be'ishtoi comes to tell you, which is normally when we say the word adultery, this is what we refer to. It means having an act of cohabitation of bia with a married woman. Then when it says, from that Chazal Darshan, says Rabbi Akiva, with whom are we allowed to engage, have an act of cohabitation with? Only Mishan Nasan Basar Echad, only with one. With Basar Echad, Rashi says that when you conceive, you become one flesh through the child. So any act of cohabitation with a being through which a human being, we'll see all animals, and that can never conceive, Yatsu behema v'chaya she'ein nasim basar echad with a man, which is really a miracle. What's the fact? Normally in nature, 1 + 1 = 2. But the only time where 1 + 1 = 1 is when there is a conception, because the male contribution and the female contribution in the beginning, they become one. Then they begin to double. That's the real basar echad, the act of conception. Okay. So now we got the examples Rabbi Akiva gave, which are included in the pasuk that God Almighty told Adam, even though it's called B'nai Noach, but God added to B'nai Noach was Ever Menachai. Because prior to the Mabul, people erroneously say we were not allowed to eat meat. That's wrong. We were not allowed to kill an animal to eat its meat. Prior to the Mabul, from the beginning, if an animal died naturally, we were allowed to eat its meat. When did Hashem allow us to kill an animal to eat its meat? Taka only after the Mabul. Then God added the seventh, not the Nsar Balachayim. Don't rip off the limb while the animal is still alive. First kill and then eat. Okay. Omar Mad, let's go back to this machloikes. Rabbi Eliezer Omer Aviv is coming to tell you that a ben noach may not have a relation with his father's sister. I frag the Gemara, why can't you touch? Aviv means a ben noach cannot have a relation with his father. Can't be, answers the Gemara, because then the Davak already excluded the loy bezacher. It won't be needed, right? It's already included in that. Hainu v'davak v'loy bezacher. I ve'ema eishes aviv. Same answer. When we said later, be'ishtoi, right? That means what the Gemara is really pointing out, that the second part of this braisa isn't only Rabbi Akiva. From the words v'davak, it's both Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Akiva. Since the ishtoi, as it says in the braisa, is to exclude eishes chaveiroi, I don't need a specific pasuk to exclude eishes aviv.
We were learning it was going to be after.
The Gemara is going to ask that in a moment. Asks the Gemara, Eimela achar misa. Oh, maybe it's after the father's death. By the way, which is exactly what Rabbi Akiva says. Why couldn't Rabbi Eliezer say it? Answers the Gemara. Rabbi Eliezer didn't like that because he wanted it to be dumya de imoy. That just like imoy is not a relation through marriage, it's a blood relation. Guys, there's relations through marriage and there's a blood relations. So if you wanted for this to be consistent, that the isur connected, that's merumas and the word aviv, is also not because of marriage, But yes, like Rabbi Eliezer says, that what does it refer to? It refers to the father's sister. Father's sister related to the father because they share the same mother, not because of marriage. It's going to be more consistent. Imoy vaited. What does Rabbi Eliezer say? It means achois imoy, the mother's sister. Why not? Why not say imoy mamish? The answer is again. His mother is married. Still, 1 second. Maybe it's referring to his mother after the father passed away. Again, the Gemara answers that Rabbi Eliezer wants them to be similar. Dumya the aviv, my aviv, the lav mamish, just like we already established. Aviv doesn't mean father because that we know from the Davak. The Davak doesn't allow a person to do an act, to engage in an act of homosexuality. So af imoy, the lav mamish. And we're going to have a one-liner on Daf Nun Ches Amud Aleph. That's Daf Nun Ches Amud based on the top. I know it's Rabbi Eliezer. How do you approach the interpretation of psukim? Consistency is of utmost importance. And like this, Aviv and Imoy are mamish almost the same. It's the sister of the Aviv, and Imoy means the sister of the Imoy. They're very similar. Now, let's go to Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva, Omer Aviv means Eishes Aviv, the father's wife. Why not say Aviv mamish? He has the same answer. Because if that would be the case, we would not need it. Because the davak is v'loy b'zacher, so of course, not of course, including is the father. Iachi, Eishes, Aviv, Nami. Why don't we say that that's superfluous? Because the be'ishtoi that Rabbi Akiva says at the end tells you v'loy be'eshes chabeiroi. So why would you think that your father's wife is allowed? She's married. No, the Gemara clarifies. Like we spoke out. That is only after la'achar misa. Okay. Imoy, what does Rabbi Akiva say? Ima means ima mamish. Hold on, same kasha. Why don't we say be'ishtoi v'loy be'eshes chabeiroi? Now here, the Gemara cannot answer what we answered above, which is la'achar misa. Look inside the last line in Rashi. Right, la'achar misas aviv nami leka leterut. So the Gemara doesn't even need to say it because tahainu eishes aviv. Well, we already said that eishes aviv means la'achar misa, so you're not adding anything. It's imoy la'achar misa. That's eishes aviv. The Gemara says no. It could be that this woman was never married. Answers the Gemara, imoy ma'anusasai. In other words, what happens, literally it means someone was born from an act of rape. That's literally. In other words, his mother was never married to his father. It doesn't have to be the way we interpret the word rape today. It means out of marriage. Many times in Chazal, if a couple have a relation out of marriage, we consider her either a mafuta or an anusa, not kosher. Even here, that's the word. Not asur mitzad, she's the wife of the father. Now it becomes, you know what the bottom line is? According to Rabbi Akiva, that blood relations are asur, clear. The cases that he gave up, not blood relations through marriage, right, are not going to be asur at all for a ben noyach. And therefore, subsequently, if you have a ger shemes gayer, even if he was even if he was lidasa v'kedusha, if hirasa v'kedusha, then you can't say that midrabanan don't do that. Because shelo yomru that you came from a kedusha chamura to kedusha kali, even as a ben noach you were allowed to do it. Gemara says, "Well, Michael Mitzvah, what's the underlining issue between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Eliezer?" Gemara says, "Rabbi Eliezer savar." This is the one liner we quoted that aviv dumya the imoy v'imoy duma the aviv, and the only way we can have the aviv and the imoy most similar will only be if we're speaking about people that are related to the aviv and the imoy through achava. Achra means through blood, sister of the father, sister of the mother, and then they'll be mamash alike, and not through marriage. Rabbi Akiva holds mutav lo'oikmei be'eshes aviv. When it says aviv, not sister. Eshes aviv already means related through marriage. Why? Because the Torah says, the way we're teaching it, Yazov Adam as aviv. His father. We're saying it doesn't mean his father mamish. So I'm asking you, why do you think is considered closer to his father? So he says that ervas aviv, interesting, the Torah uses the word erva. The Torah uses the word erva when you have someone who's related through marriage. And the Torah uses the word she'er, which means a relative. A relative is not you, it's your relative. Your nakedness. Your nakedness is considered marriage. So the Torah says Yazav Adam as Aviv. Yazav Ish, thank you, as Aviv. The key is Aviv. And neither of them are saying it means you can't be with your father. That's included in V'davak. So who is closer to the Ba'aviv? Rabbi Eliezer says it's referring to the sister of the father. The sister of the father is not father. It says she'ed of the father. At least the father's wife, the Torah refers to the father's wife as the nakedness of the father. It's interesting that through marriage, we actually create a closer relation, a closer kirva than we do through blood when it comes to a wife. Now, since Eishes Aviv is called Ervas Aviv in the Torah, the father's nakedness, the father's sister in the Torah is going to be called Achois Aviv, or the word She'ed is going to be used. So therefore, the She'ed Aviv Ikra, a sister is called She'ed in the Torah for Yidden. Ervas Aviv Lo Ikra, the Torah never calls it the nakedness of the father. So it's more mashma, not the consistency of one word with the other, not the consistency, but this word itself. You're trying to take the word Aviv out of its literal meaning, which he is. Aviv doesn't mean father. Aviv means someone connected to the father. It has to be the one that's the closest to the father, and that is the wife of the father. Okay. So according to Rabbi Akiva, right? According to Rabbi Eliezer, if the Aviv and Imai, father, sister, mother, sister, we said Kol Shchein, you cannot marry your own sister. It was according to Rabbi Eliezer, unlike the Braisa and Daf Nun Zayin Amud Beis of Rav Meir, or Ben Noyach is not allowed to marry a sister. And the Havamina is that it is doidosoi min ha'ein. Now we understand this is before Matan Torah, but according to Rabbi Eliezer, that the mothers, it has to be maternal. The mother's sister, that's Imoy, is asur from Yazov Ish as Avaves Imoy. Imoy means don't marry your mother's sister. How did Amram marry Yocheved? So the Gemara answers that it was Loy, that she was not a maternal sister, but she was a paternal sister. And that's to emphasize that all of the kid was, even if there is an Isur of sisterhood and of aunt, it's only going to be if it's mitzad ha'im. Next, Tashemam, this kasha will be on Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva says, Rabbi Akiva says that by Torah law, a ben noach is not mitzvah not to marry a sister. A ben noach can marry a sister. Problem is, when Avimelech gave back Sarah, after she was kidnapped now by him, prior to the story of Paroi, and there the Torah records some of the dialogue that they had when he accused Avraham Avinu of being dishonest. And Avraham Avinu, who claimed that Sarah was a sister, let me just tell you the reality, that Terach had three sons, the Torah writes. The eldest son was Haran, and Yiska, which is Sarah, she was the niece of Avraham Avinu. Now, he called her sister. So he tells Avimelech, V'gam omno, yes indeed, take emes, achoisi, she is my sister, but only bas avihi, but she's not my sister through the mother side. Now, what are we saying according to Rabbi Akiva? That even if there is a blood relation, maternal, but sister is a ben noach is allowed to marry. So why did he have to emphasize that? Fakir, that's mashma, that if she would have been related, the bas ha'ein, if she would have been a sister from Avraham Avinu through the mother, then she would have been asad. He's trying to explain why he can marry her. So the Gemara says, no, that's not a kasha, because b'chlal, let's take a step back. Sarah was not a sister. Forget about paternal maternal. No, she was bas achiv havya. She was a niece. So first of all, the words of this pasuk cannot be taken literally. The kiven, the hachihu, loishna min ha'av, v'loishna min ha'ein. Sharia. Really, in other words, whether Haran was a brother through paternal to Avram, which he was. In other words, Haran and Avram shared the same father, Terach. Haran and Avram did not share the same mother. But even if they would have shared the same mother, just to make it clear, in other words, he would have been allowed to marry Sarah because Sarah was not a sister. Just to make that clear, Sarah was his niece. Even a Yid is allowed to marry his niece, paternal, maternal, both. And actually, if a person really marries L'Shem Shamayim, it's a mitzvah to marry your niece. Rabbi Yehuda Chassid was the one that said we should not do it, because since already from his days, he felt that people don't marry purely L'Shem Shamayim, and Al Pi Teva, marrying very close blood relatives can bring about certain illnesses. So if you're doing it L'Shem Shamayim, you're protected. Once there is a taint of, which we're human, we're not only marrying her because that's a mitzvah, because I like her, I love you means I love me, not I love you. I like the way you make me feel, it's about me. Amela, we are careful not to marry certain types of close kin, even though Al Pi Torah you are allowed to. And just to explain, Ella, 1 second. So first of all, since she was not a sister, the emes is, it doesn't make a difference. She could have been, if it would have been a sister, it would have made a difference. It was not a sister. It was a niece. So regardless what shita you hold, he's allowed to marry her. Ella, what did Avraham Avinu tell Avimelech? I want you to know the fact, Kurva da achois isli bahada. In other words, she's not my sister. She's not my sister. She is like a sister. How is she like a sister? I'll tell you. Because since she was Haran's daughter, elsewhere Chazal say that a grandfather calls his grandchildren children. Shinam tam levanecha includes the chiyuv anazeda to be involved in a good way, not in a destructive way, with the chinuch of his grandchildren. Because b'nei banecha are called from the grandparents' children. So Terach called Avraham, he called him Avram, a son. Terach called Sarah daughter because she was Haran's daughter. Just for you to know that when he emphasized paternal, because the fact is that Avram and Haran were only paternal brothers. The Isli Achois, the Isli Ba'adoma Abba v'loy me'ima. In other words, what he told Avimelech is, I wasn't lying. She is from the perspective of Terach, Sarah is my sister. And then he added sister just to tell him the Metzias, that they were sisters from the father and not from the mother. Coming back over here, let Rabbi Akiva.
Why is it relevant? What's Avraham communicating when he says, "For my father, but not for my mother"?
For what have been, what he's trying to communicate is she's not what you understood to be a bona fide sister. She's my niece. Really, what he's emphasizing is that there's a tzad sisterhood by him. Then he added, there's a tzad.
He's missing Iker. The Iker is it's not a religious thing. It's about his niece, not the man.
No. Fakert. No. That fakert. Rabbi Akiva holds that a brother can marry a sister. That's the whole word. Rabbi Akiva holds that a brother can marry a sister. Only Rabbi Eliezer disallows it. She could have been a sister. Yeah. Now, she wasn't a sister. She was the wife. But she wasn't the wife's sister. He wanted to make it clear. She's not mamish. There's a tzad sister. He wanted to make it clear. She, only from someone's perspective, is she a sister. Okay. Tashema, another kasha against Rabbi Akiva. It says in a Braisa, why didn't Adam marry his daughter? The Tosfos explains the question. Now, the world came about, and we know that Naomi, Naamah, the wife of Noach, was from Cain, but Noach came from Shes. Shes, the paternal lineage, came from Adam and Chava. Now, look inside the top Tosfos, that when Chava ate from the Eitz Hadas, really she should have passed away right away. As the Torah writes, that the Adam was told that on the day you will eat from the fruit, you shall surely die. Nor was then, since we didn't want Adam to live without a wife, says Tosfos, and the only woman in the world that he was allowed to be with was Chava, this is why she lived the life that she lived. If Adam would have been halachically allowed as a ben Noach, even though there's no Noach yet, as a non-Yid, to marry a daughter, then Chava would not have lived. So answers the Braisa, because we needed for that woman to marry Cain. She can't be with Cain and be with Adam, right? She's married to one. And that's the pshat, ki omarti oilam chesed yibana, which implies that halaf hachi, right? If not the ki omarti oilam chesed yibana, which was something unique, that the world has to be built through chesed, and we quoted again the pasuk in Kedoshim, where it says that ish asher yikach es achoisoi, whether it's only minav, whether it's other minoaim, side of the Torah writing Kodesh, the Torah writes the words chesed.
What is the chesed? Because there wasn't no one else to get married to?
The Torah calls, again, the Torah calls them Kedoshim for us, even today when there's 1 billion people in the world, or can I know how to 18 million Yidden, whatever the number is, that if a man marries a sister, chesed. Now, Rashi says in Chumash that chesed here means cherpa. Then he brings from the Medrash, which is really from this Gemara. No, that there was a certain closeness. Let's go back. Why is it a mitzvah, ideally, theoretically, for a man to marry his niece? I think Rashi writes in Yavamas, there's a mitzvah for a man to love his wife. There's a mitzvah for a man to love his wife. There's a feeling. It's hard to command feelings. There's a natural love a person has to his siblings in a normal family. And that love goes to their children. And the closest person whom you're allowed to marry, which is a niece, whom you have natural love to, you love your sister more than you love your brother. That's all nature. So your sister's daughter is a woman that you already love. Avada, your sister. Elamatz asur, Chades. But here, the Torah wanted for the world to be built through a marriage through a brother and a sister, which implies, asks the Gemara, that if not for this then a man would not be allowed to marry a sister. Again, this fits Rabbi Akiva. This fits Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer says that Aviv means the father sister, the mother sister, kol shchein sister, sisterhood is Isur. Rabbi Akiva says no, Aviv means the father's wife, not sister. Answers the Gemara, you're right. But Kivan the Ishtari. Yeah. In other words, if not Kiyamarti Oilam Chesed Yibana, then Cain would not have married his sister. It would have been Adam and his daughter, right? As when the daughters of Lot, they mamish thought the world was destroyed. They thought there's no one other than their father. That's why they lived with him. It was mamish purely l'shem shamayim. If she would have been with the father, but now that Hashem wanted it to be Cain and the sister, that's that's the reason why given the Ishtari, again, let Rabbi Akiva, a Ben Noach can marry his sister. Now, Omar Rafuna learned the same brayso that we learned, but he has one big difference between the way we applied it. Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Akiva, my friends, like for example, Rabbi Eliezer never spoke about sister. He never spoke about sister. Elamah, we're saying ourselves. He gave an example of it means father, sister. Ima means mother, sister. So it includes also sister. You know what Rafuna does? Rafuna holds that the brayso we learned above Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Akiva, the only isurei of acts of cohabitations are the ones mentioned in the brayso. We don't include anyone else. So therefore, Amar Rafuna kuti muter bebitoi. A goy is allowed to marry his daughter.
It's not in the brayso.
Because it's not in the brayso. And by the way, a man and his daughter for a yid, you know what that is? It's punishable. It's executed in court. In other words, he doesn't even follow the beginning of Meir of Daf Nun Zayin Amud Beis. He goes less. If it's not in the brayso, it's not awesome. If a kuti is allowed with his daughter, let's go back to this. The answer is now there's another version. Kuti is asur bebitoi. Why? Teda. If not for that, why wouldn't Adam marry his daughter? And again, the point of the angle of Tosfos is that ideally Chava should have passed away right away. Only reason why she didn't pass away is because Adam, it's not fair on Adam. Adam should stay with a wife. But if it would have been allowed, he would have married his daughter. And the Gemara now says that's not a raya according to this version. Really, B'nai Noach have a dinner, but not Yidden. Correct. Kuti means here not Yid, not Yid. The censor put on a kuti. Because when you write over here these words that a kuti is allowed to marry his daughter, if you were to write goy, they would have gotten very insulted. We can get banned on YouTube from this mamish. That Al Pidin Torah, these things are allowed. All right, now, so the nakuda will be like this. The takeaway is, going back to what we began learning today, that gerish and esgair kikotin shenoy lo dam. Al Pidin Torah, he has no she'er. There's no relatives. He has no relatives. Midin Torah, he can marry anyone. Eloma, whoever he was not allowed to be as a ben noyach, shelo yoimru, that I came from. It sounds like as a ben noyach there was more chumras, not to have that midrabanan. Now listen about an eved. An eved is unique. We're speaking about an eved Kanani, a goy who belongs to a yid, and he needs to undergo a tvila, but the tvila is l'shem avdus. When that person, whether male or female, go to the mikvah l'shem avdus, they become quasi-yidin. In between, they're no longer goyim. Technically, it means that he or she, even the man, will be commanded to keep all of the mitzvahs that women are obligated to keep. But they're not commanded to keep all the tayag mitzvahs. So therefore, an eved is like a convert. He can really marry anyone. The rabbinic reason that we're giving does not apply to an eved. An eved will never say that I came from a kedusha chamura to a kedusha kala. He understands that I'm still an eved. If he'll be emancipated, then he won't be then he also won't be allowed. So there's no fear of that. He's going to view becoming an eved or a yid as something inconsequential. So therefore, Amar Rav Chizda, eved mutar be'imai. Wow, guys, imai, capital punishment means even according to Rabbi Akiva that a ben noich is only mitzvah on relations for which there is he's allowed mebitoi. Why? Because yatzim ichlal kuti. But since ulachlal Yisrael loy ba, we're not afraid that he's going to say that I came from a kedusha chamura to a kedusha kala. If I state, he's still an eved. Ki osad avdimi amar Rabbi Lazar amar Rabbi Chanina. Another din. Now we said that ishtoi it means Eishes ish. How do you define Eishes ish? That's a very big topic. The concept of kedushin does not exist by goyim. Does not exist. Married means they're married. They're living together as husband and wife. The type of setting that we create, that's one of the chedushim that happened when God gave the Torah, is that prior to actually marrying, create the setting for marriage. How? By words. By saying to her, Arei Nikudeshesli. And they're not even allowed to be together. Yiddish chasan and kala, halachic chasan and kala. The asurim zelozeh, but she's also asura l'cholo olam kuli. That's something unique by Yid. Now, by goyim, marriage means that they're married. They went to the chuppah. They lived together. Question here will be regarding avodim. So says Rab Chanina, if a ben noyach designated a shivcha kananis to an eved kanani, is that considered marriage? So you should know that as far as marriage is concerned, since we're speaking about Avadim, she's not considered married. So one might argue if the master has a relation with her or anyone else, that's not Eishes Chaveiroi. The answer is Chayev Misa. But not because she's an Eishes Ish, but because since she's a shivcha and she was designated for that eved, it's as if he's stealing her. It's connected to the isur of theft. And as we are learning the sugya of the Sheva mitzvahs b'nei noyach, which turn into the 30 mitzvahs b'nei noyach, etc., that 7 categories, any violation of any of the Sheva mitzvahs b'nei noyach brings about death. So he says, because he's stealing. The only question is, may emas, they don't do the marriage the way goyim do a marriage. They're avodim. So how do you define now that one is designated to the other? So it's a very interesting definition of marriage. Amar Rav Nachman, the planya, when people out there, when people in the market, when they see this shivcha, they say, she is the girl of so-and-so. Revisa means the girl. She's the maiden of so-and-so. Because if there is a shame out there that she is his, that's marriage in the context of avodim and shivchis. Again, the master cannot have a relation with her, but not mitzad eishes chaveiroi, but mitzad geneva, mitzad gezela. Now, on the other hand, since they're not married, even in the din of b'nei noyach, so they can break up. So when are they considered not designated for the other? Ume'emas hatorasa, amarafuna, amoyed dekalainer, mishapara roisha bashuk. Married women from the times of the Mabul on, married women covered their hair. And even the Shivcha, if she would be designated for a specific Eved, she would cover her hair when she goes out. The moment she's no longer covering her hair, that's because she does not identify herself as his. Okay, weiter. Guys, these are big statements. Ben Noach shel Baal Ishtoi. But if it is Shaloi Kedarka, just for the sake of clarity, Shaloi Kedarka means anal intercourse. His shita is Chayev. Chayev by Goyim always means Chayev Misa. Now, doesn't mean that Chayev Misa in a court, Chayev Misa b'dei Shemaim, Machloik, doesn't matter. Why? Because, come back to the pasuk. Because since the pasuk, which is telling you what a man should do, is V'davak, so he holds that any type of, let's go back to the words in the Holy Tongue, Bia Shaloi Kedarka is not considered V'davak, and therefore it's also on him. Now we got a problem. The problem is that there is no isur on a yid mitzad halacha to have such a relation. Amar Rava, how can that be? Mi'ika mida, the Yisraeloi machayev, having a relation with his Yiddish wife, shaloi kedarkoi, v'chuti machayev. We also don't want to have a scenario where there's any kedusha chamura by the Ben Noach over the Ben Yisrael. So he disagrees with that. But he does do something with this shaloi kedarka with the V'davak. He learned something from the V'davak, but look, kula. What is that? Elamar Rava Ben Noach. Listen to this. Shalbal Ashes Chaveiroi Shaloi Kedarkoi. No, it's Ashes Ish is a Isur Erba that a Ben Noach is Mitzuva L'Kula Alma. What happens if a Ben Noach has a Shaloi Kedarka act of cohabitation with Ashes Chaveiroi? He won't be Chayev Misa. It's terrible, but he's not going to be Chayev Misa. Why? Because since the Torah says Be'ishtoi, from where we learned V'loi Be'eshes Chaveiroi, and in the pasuk we have the V'davak V'loi Shaloi Kedarkoi. In other words, so we put together this correct. And he's not debating that there's something concerning the Shaloi Kedarkoi that's excluded from the V'davak. Yes, but it's excluded L'Kula when it comes to an Ben Noach. Now a Ben Yisrael that God forbid has a Shaloi Kedarka relation with Eshes Chaveiroi will be Chayev Misa. Okay, this is used as a kula lebnei Noach. Amar Rabbi Chanina, Ovid Kechavim, Shehikas Yisrael, Chayev Misa. Again, Chayev Misa means when it says Chayev Misa b'dei Shamayim. Why? Shenemar, because since it says regarding Moshe Rabbeinu, right? Vayifem koi v'choi, and vayarki ein ish, and vayachas ha-mitzri. And what happened to the Mitzri? Passed away, and we know that the Koi V'Choi, he was Mitzaref, the letters Chof and the Hey was Shem Yud Kei Vavke, he used the Shem. That's Chai Misa V'dei Shamayim. He brought about the Chai Misa V'dei Shamayim. Ve'amar Rabbi Chanina, Hasoiter loy oy shal Yisrael, whoever even only slaps the jaw of a Yid. Ki'ilu soiter loy oy shal Shechina. It's as if he slapped the jaw of the Shechina itself. Herself, Shenemar, as it says, Moikesh Adam Yala Kodesh. A man, the ensnarement of man, which means the ensnarement, the sinfulness of man, right, destroys his holiness. That's the pshat, which we all know. It means we all have a nefesh alekis. The biggest hindrance that we have, why aren't we holier? Because of the sin. But the drasha is that Moikesh Adam means you slap an Adam. We're speaking about Eden. It's as if you slapped Kodesh itself. That's how far away we stay from it. And more than that, as we'll see in a moment, it's not only about slapping, but let's go further. And as an amanic to remember the sugya and the hemshech and the connections, is Magbia Abdoi Shabbos will be the simon. Amarei Shlakish. Hamagbia Yodei Al Chaveiroi. Even if one only lifts his hand against his fellow, Afalpi Shelo Yiko, he's already called a Rasha. Shenemar, as it says, going back to Moshe Rabbeinu. Right? And the next day, by Dasan and Aviram, by Yomer Lor Rasha, Lama Saka. You know what? How you have to know Digduk. Saka means, why will you strike? Why will you strike? Lama Hiki. So why did you strike? Lenema. Elo Saka. Afa Pishalayko Nikra Rasha. Wow. Seiri Yom Rabbi Chanina. That he's also called a sinner. Shenemar, as it says, V'imloi, these are concerning the Bnei Eli, that they were very aggressive, and the people that brought their kachim, amongst other things. They demanded of them, some of the kachim that you're giving to the kohen, give to us, not to the other kohanim. And the imloi, we'll take it by force. In other words, they made a threat. They didn't even do it yet. They threatened the other. And it says concerning Bnei Eli, but he chatas hana'arim gedolim oid. Now, I know that other times the chatas hana'arim is referring to what the Torah says, they had relations with other people's wives. Chazal say even, first of all, he had two sons, Pinchas and Chafni. It wasn't both of them, it was only one of them. And it was never mamish grub relations. It was that they did not rush to bring the karbanos of kinim when they brought it. And the woman wanted to wait until it was brought, so they would stay over there in Shiloh another night. So they kept them away from their wives. So it's as if they had relations with them. From the husbands. Just to know, we're not minimizing, but just to understand. So many times the chatas hana'arim, which is referring to for them behaving, so to say, sexually wrong, which only meant that they delayed these women returning to their husbands. The kind of mark him that when a Rav gets a shayla and maras, the understanding, he has to answer right away. From all this is a big thing to, if you, it's bekoichacha to determine now, not later. Anyways, here, because here we're connecting the chatas hana'arim to the pasuk of them threatening that we will take it by force. Threatening to use force is called a chayta. Threatening to use force, that's concerning him. Arafuna Amar. Not only we're going about either threatening to use force or using force. That the punishment for someone doing that, tikatzes yada, should have his hand cut off. And by the way, there are times that are based in B'din Torah, if violence gets out of hand, they are allowed to counter it with extreme measures, including cutting off people's hands. Shenamar, as it says that v'zroya rama, that the raised hand, says the raised hand aggressively, tishavar should be broken. And actually, not only is that a theory, the Gemara says that Afhuna katz yada. Wow. So all that Rashi says is that there was someone in the community of Rafuna that actually was a hitter, not threatening. He used force, and Rafuna called him into the Beis Din and had his hand cut off. Says the Gemara that Rabbi Elazar Omer ain't like takana el kvura. No. A person who uses aggression and even again threatens aggression, the only solution is that he's going to be buried in the ground. The world cannot live with aggressive people. As it says, that the man here, it's in a negative. A man of Zuraya, you know what? God made the land for him. Now we're going to learn the same pasuk in the positive. There's another drasha. If you want to succeed, if you're a farmer, and if you want to succeed in growing a harvest, you understand, you have to be a very strong person. A very strong person means you have to be consistent. You know how much we buy food in the market. You have to plant, and you have to weed, and you have to hoe, and you have to this, and a biz, you have to be as it says, and only one who works his land, Yizbalachim will be satiated with bread. That's what it means. That if you behave as if you are an eved to your land, it means you work, it's a daily avodah. Then Yisav Alechem, the Imlav lo Yisav Alechem, and Beruchnias, we get what it means. Lechem is Torah. There's no easy. You won't get anywhere. You have to be an Eved. You have to undertake the oil. Then you'll have satiation from the Lachma Shol Torah. Let's just open up the first liner. We'll continue tomorrow. We have another minute. For Amarei Shlakish, Oivet kichavim sheshavas chayav misa. Chayav misa means chayav misa b'dei shamayim. Shenemar, since God told Noach after the flood and all of mankind, so day and night you shall not cease. Now, really, the pshat is it refers to the heavenly bodies that stopped during the Mabul, but it means that people are not allowed to take a Shabbos. So, what does that mean? Again, we're gonna review this tomorrow. For Amar Ma'ad, Azara Shalom. First of all, when there's a warning for a Ben Noach, unlike for Yidden, there has to be a warning and then a punishment. Whenever God says once, don't do what it means. If they do it, the Chayav Misa. And Omar Avina, Afilu Sheni b'Shabbos. This is important. We're going to read the Rashi 3 lines from the bottom. Don't understand, Rashi writes, that when is a guy who keeps Shabbos, Chayiv Misa v'dei Shamayim, if his kavana was, I'm doing it because of Shabbos. No, Ravina says, and Rashi already adds, the goyim in his days rested Sunday. That it's not for religious reasons. Even if he rests on a day, that's not Chodesh for any group. Monday was not a religious holiday in the times of the Chazal for anyone. And he says, you know what? I'm taking a full day off. He's Chayav Misa. God created man to work. and not to take a full day off. Now, we're going to continue tomorrow. Some people, in order to work, they have to rest. That's okay. But they're not resting because their goal is to rest. The goal is Adam lo umal yevulad or yulad. That's how you read it, Yevoled. A person was born to toil. Yeah, you have to sleep because you're resting in order to work. Resting, l'shem resting, my goal is to rest. That's something for which God made us to work. Chayav Misa to be continued.
However, you took it from that if I eat